Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. How are we all doing on this fine day? Hoping quite well. 1 second, I just want to make sure that I change things correctly because I think I've broken something on my end. No, wait, it should be fine. That'll do. How are we all doing, everybody? I hope we are fine and dandy and well and good. And we have got to talk about more transfer bits, because there's even more transfer bits going on, because there always are and there always will be. Sorry I wasn't able to do a stream yesterday. It was a day, is the only way that I can put that. It was a bit of a stinker. But we're beyond that, and we are where we are now, so here we go. But we need to talk about the main story of the day, which is what looks like some interest from a different club in Bilal El Khannouss. Now, we already knew that there were a couple of clubs that had a little bit of an interest. That was fine, that was sure, that was whatever, cool. This has adjusted things a touch, being a bigger club than was previously linked, and being a more reliable source than elsewhere. So specifically, if we go over to monitor number 2, John Percy is the person that's made the report, stating that Newcastle have a strong interest in Leicester City attacking midfielder Bilal El Khannouss and are looking at a possible deal. Now, I'm going to preface all of this with a little bit of a something that people seem to keep on forgetting, and that is that this deal was never going to be done before the 14th or the 15th of August, because that is when the release clause comes to an end. Bilal El Khannouss has a release clause that comes to a close halfway through August. Once that date passes, it's sort of open season for putting in bids and all that kind of stuff. So as much as people, I am absolutely inevitable, are going to be shouting, why didn't we just get the deal done? Because that's not how it works. Because if we've been through this a different time, if we would have just said, yeah, sure, we'll do the release clause, then all we've done is free him from his contract at Leicester City, and he doesn't necessarily have Leeds he specifically wants to go to. Effectively, he and his agent will be getting as much interest going as possible up until the point that that release clause expires, because it would be stupid for them not to, because they've got the opportunity to get as many names in the door as feasibly possible. But still, going to talk through it anyway. Has a release clause, also attracting interest from other PL clubs, including Leeds in this window. That much we knew. Other PL clubs, I believe, would probably be Palace, are the other main significant link. I don't know why the chat box isn't doing its thing right now, which is really good. Hold on, I want to see if I can fix it. That might sort it. I don't know. For some reason, the chat just isn't showing up. Sorry about that, guys. Normally it does, but I am reading the chat, so it's fine. Also, I love saying, is it a clickbait title? I wouldn't say so, because a lot of people are asking, are Leeds in deep shit? There we go. It's actually working now. So as far as the John Percy side of things goes, there is a little bit of interest from Leeds United in El Khannouss, and Newcastle in El Khannouss, and other Premier League clubs in El Khannouss. But there was a little bit more detail from the boy, the route through which, seemingly, El Khannouss's agent is just relentlessly going. Just constantly. Like, the agent is using Sasha Tavolieri relentlessly, because he has also had a say on this, stating that Newcastle United contacted Bilal El Khannouss's camp to ask conditions on a deal this weekend, but the Magpies are currently waiting for detailed precisions, I'm guessing just details, about the exact amount of the release clause by Leicester City before making a move. So, in essence, that is securing what has been said by the Telegraph, but it is also taking a little bit of further detail into it, is taking a further step to go, and this is what they've asked, which is effectively just sort of asking how much would the release clause be, what would the payment terms be, all that kind of stuff, to throw their hat into the mix. So, you got to ask the question, what has actually fundamentally changed in this situation? So, chat is fine. No, chat was fine, chat was functional, but the chat wasn't showing up here, which was the problem. So what has actually majorly changed in this regard? So, first thing, we just know there's another club in for him. Sure, fine, that's all good. Second thing, nothing, really. The question is, which club is El Khannouss going to go to? Not is El Khannouss going to move, because he's got that release clause and he's going to wait it out to get as much interest built as feasibly possible. Because, as has been said by Lee, it's fairly obvious he's waiting for the best possible offer to be put on the table. And I'll be honest, I don't hugely blame the guy. From his perspective, he's going to wait until he's got all of the offers on the table and go, which of these is best for me? And then he's going to pick out whichever one that is. Whether that's Leeds or not, we don't know yet, because odds are we can offer more... What is the hair doing? Odds are we can offer more football than Newcastle, we can offer more football than Palace, but then again, is that what he cares about right now? As a young, upcoming, developing player, I would argue it probably is and probably should be, but if he'd prefer to play in European competitions over that, which was said the opposite earlier on, I think it was Tavolieri that also said that he's not particularly asked about European football, then that in itself is a little bit of a sort of bonus for us, because it doesn't particularly say that he is going to be screaming out for Newcastle. The entire thing is a big question mark. Like, Gary, I would disagree with the way that you've put that, because it's sort of Champions League or trying to stay in the Premier League. That feels like it's not the most accurate representation. Because it's not going to be a case of, do I want to play in the Champions League or play at the bottom of the Premier League? No, because it's, do I want to play in the Premier League or sit on the bench in the Champions League, not really play much football for a few years on end, and then end up having not developed and shift to the bottom end of the Premier League anyway, because I've not improved over those years and I've not gotten minutes. That's the question. And it's sort of a matter of if he wants to push himself or not. And that makes it a little bit confusing for me. That puts it into the sort of territory of, okay, I kind of see what direction you want to go here, El Khannouss. Or he could be motivated by Dosh. That is another very, very good point, Mark. And when it comes to Dosh, we're not really going to be competing with the Saudis, because the Saudis are widely regarded for having quite a lot of that. But I'm not... My personal spot on it isn't that I'm super scared about it. I'm not going to be the kind of person that gets into a flap and goes, if we don't get El Khannouss, the season's done. Because pre-season was pretty fucking good. If we would have... I'm not saying you're worked up. I'm mainly looking at the likes of Twitter at the moment. But the, like, looking in the direction of Twitter and everyone go, this is the worst window ever. And it's like, I don't think it is. We've signed someone who's on the brink of the Brazil squad in goal. We got the best defensive midfielder in the Bundesliga last year, in my opinion, with Anton Stack. Done pretty damn well at centre-back because Newcastle also wanted Jakobiel. And we're not done yet. No one is saying that we are done yet. But it's a bit of a question mark surrounding which of the attacking players that we'll be going for. And on that one, saying that I doubt we'll get any new signings, be prepared for a relegation battle. I've got to be honest with you, I already was prepared for a relegation battle. We are firmly at the bottom of the expectations. We just are. Because that's how it works. Because you're going to be. However, I don't think we're in as much trouble as a lot of people sort of assume. Like, we played AC Milan at the weekend, and in terms of the balance of the chances, we had way more chances and way better chances than they did. And our one main weakness was a player that isn't going to be playing for us when the season kicks in. Our main big weakness was Isaac Schmidt at right back, who isn't going to be our right back this season, because that's going to be Jayden Bogle. Because he's not going to be injured for the entire season. That's not what happens. Yeah. I think I agree with that, Jimmy. Of course we're in for a relegation battle. Surely everyone coming into the season's aware of this and knows 17th would be a good finish next season. Yeah. The Athletic did a piece earlier today where they posted who their writers thought would finish in each position in the league. And I was like, that's a kind of interesting article. I'll give that a read. And they had Leeds at 17th. And I'll be honest with you, 17th is not a bad spot. Below us was, I believe, Wolves, then Sunderland, then Burnley at the bottom. And I don't hate that. Could be worse. Schmidt features against Everton, I won't be happy. Yeah, same. I'll be honest with you, I will be a little bit scared if Schmidt features against Everton. I wouldn't mind off the bench. Off the bench is fine, fuck it. But it would have to be a very situational off the bench in a time that actually makes sense. But if he starts, then that's scary, because of our two right backs at the moment, I'm not starting Isaac Schmidt. Well, of our two backup right backs at the moment, I'm not starting Isaac Schmidt. And yeah, I do think Brentford are in the mix, and I think West Ham are in the mix, because they're also struggling. I wouldn't agree with what you've just said there, Dr. Cox, saying just let Schmidt go this week. That feels like that would be absolute madness. Because we could really, really do with a little bit of depth in the majority of positions at the moment. And I feel like just sort of saying, oh, well, you could just leave. That's okay. You could just... Away you go, Isaac. You weren't good enough in pre-season. Okay, well, what happens if Sam Byram gets injured? What happens if Sam Byram gets injured is we don't have a right back. And we end up having to pluck someone else from somewhere to try and make it work. We do have Stack. Stack is a fantastic signing. I'm very happy with him. But I agree with Steve as well. I think we are capable of finishing above 17th. And 17th will do. No one would be mad at 17th. Well, some people would be mad at 17th. I've seen Twitter. But I'd be satisfied with that. Because it'd be a case of we went into the season with a very, very distinct mission. And that distinct mission was don't go down. And that's where I'm feeling okay with it. Nothing personal against Underwood, but I don't think he's got the context to say Nick Hammond. The thing with that is everyone points to the, yeah, but what contacts have you got? That's not realistically how it works. It's not going to work saying, well, okay, so I would sign a player from, pick a club, any club at random, Borussia Dortmund. I would sign a player from Borussia Dortmund, but I don't have the phone number of the guy there. That's not how that's realistically going to work. The way it's going to work is the clubs will have established routes of contact anyway. It's not going to be a case of I'll ping him a DM on WhatsApp. That's... Yeah, sure, it might be somewhat beneficial in a negotiation from time to time, but... yeah. I don't know. Bornau has played at right back, obviously. Don't want to have to use him. Yeah, I don't want to have to use him, but if it comes to it, we do have a little bit of support. I don't know. Hard to say. Where are we in the chat? Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with it, but sometimes you guys talk fast, and you guys talking fast is absolutely wonderful. I do appreciate it, but holy hell, I struggle to keep up sometimes. At this moment, we're sitting 19th. No. Come on. I feel like you're saying that it's Burnley below us, and I do agree with that. But I don't think we're 19th. I think we started from a stronger position than Sunderland did in the first place. And people have looked at Sunderland's business and they've gone, oh, they've got a lot of good players in. And it's like, okay, sure, but they had to get to the bare minimum. And I think we were at a bare minimum. And then we built upon said bare minimum, which I think puts us probably above Sunderland in any case. That's where I'm at with it, at the very least. And we will get a few more players in. FPLG, who we know is a reasonably reliable source over on Twitter, said the other day that Leeds are looking at 5 more deals or something, 2 of which were strikers, which is quite good. One of them will be a fullback, one of them will be a winger /10 as well, which is pretty damn good. I don't mind that. But then again, a lot of people do, and a lot of people will, and there's nothing that we can do about that, so that's okay. Let's have a look. Sunderland have looked trash in pre-season. Yes, absolutely they have. This was a thing that I was going to bring up as well, so thank you for mentioning that. If we go to Flashscore and we search for Sunderland. Sunderland have played... Let's have a quick count. 8 games in pre-season. Right? 8. Now, off the top of your head, without Googling, and if you know it already, don't spoil it in the chat. But out of those 8 games, how many would you guess that they had won based on the amount of hype that seems to be building around Sunderland? If you were to have a stab in the dark. Keeping in mind they've played 8 times, I'll give you the teams they've played against if you like. So they played against South Shields, they played against Sevilla, they played against Sporting, Hearts, Hull, Betis, Augsburg, Vallecano. So they have played some reasonably simple to beat opposition. Like Hull is in there, Hearts are in there, South Shields are in there. So we can assume that's one of the wins. But what's the vibe at? Because I know a lot of people are very impressed with Sunderland, but when push comes to shove, that's not great, is it? Cool, they beat South Shields, well done. They drew with Sevilla. Okay, that is a sign that they're in a reasonable position. But then they lose to Sporting, which, okay, sure, Sporting are a reasonable side. And then they get hammered by Hearts, losing 3-0. Not ideal. Hearts didn't do particularly well last season. Okay, what's up next? Hull, which they managed to lose 2-1 against a side that is barely in the Championship. And then they lost to Betis. And sure, they managed to sneak a win against Augsburg, but then they got hammered by Vallecano. Let's have a look at the Augsburg match, actually. So they won by a missed penalty, essentially. And yeah, they missed a penalty on their end as well, but that's still not great. So as much as people are sort of looking at their window and going, oh, it's fantastic, I wish we were Sunderland right now, I think if we would have come into this season with 5 losses out of 8 games, we would be in shambles right now. There would be calls for Daniel Farke's head. And on the other hand, we've won our games over in Germany on a pre-season tour, and we've got a draw against Scum, which is a pretty fucking good team to play against. We've got a draw against Villarreal, where we looked the better side, and again, Champions League side, and we got a draw against AC Milan. 8th in Serie A last season, and again, a fucking good team to play against. All we've done is give ourselves reason to have a higher level of confidence. And sure, fine, whatever. We might not have gotten all of our moves done yet, but it's going to come. And Tanya is of the opinion that we won't get any marquee signings in the end. It kind of depends on what you're calling a marquee signing. Because I do still think we get a striker, we get a 10/winger, we get a fullback. I think we're getting enough. We get a striker and a 10, the draw should have been wins. Absolutely. The match against AC Milan should have been a win anyway. So look at the chance that Nonto had in the first half, where he's one-on-one and he tries to dink the keeper. And he dinks it to this height. And it's like, I don't know why you tried that. You had Piru to your right. You had James to the other flank. There were a lot of opportunities for that to be a goal, and it wasn't. Which can only go on on Willie Nonto, I've got to be completely honest with you. But we're creating chances. It just didn't work out. Yeah, this is just how the 49ers do things. Relatively slowly, relatively steadily, and they'll eventually get everything done in the end. A lot of ifs, guys. If. Yeah, but at the same time, the assumption that things won't go well is based on an if. What if we don't sign a striker? That's an if. What if we don't sign a winger? That's another if. What if we end up with Isaac Schmidt as our starting fullback? That's another if. And we will sort those positions out, because every single window we've had so far with the 49ers, the narrative has been the same thing. And I'll draw on a graph, actually, right? Because I feel like this deserves to be a graph. So let's go over to here. Let's make that black again and a little bit bigger. Okay, so the Leeds United transfer window graph of optimism and pessimism goes a bit like this. Hold on, let's get that open. Cool. So we start with, we'll go, this is time, and this is vibes. So vibes, as a default, will be sort of middling. You don't know where you're going to go throughout the transfer window. It's a bit of a question mark. And then we make some pretty fucking nice signings. Ho ho, we got Stacking, we've got Longstaff, we've got Lucas Perry. Jakob Biol's here now. That's pretty good. And then you hit what I'm going to call the... Let's give it a name. I'm going to call it the Rodrigo de Paul threshold. Because at this point, once you hit the Rodrigo de Paul threshold, right, you are linked with every player under the sun. If there is a footballer that is better than 6-a-side, they're getting linked with Leeds United. Like that. No doubt about it. And there's no question. And what happens is, as time goes on, we keep getting linked with players and things keep not happening, but that's because a lot of links are bullshit. And then... let's pick out an example. No, in fact, I've done that angle a little bit wrong. So things start going a little bit spooked, and it's like, oh no, what's going on? This isn't fun. Wait a minute. What do you mean Newcastle are interested in Bilal El Khannouss? Oh no, it's still not good. We've still not got the deal done. What do you mean Paixão's gone to Marseille? Oh no, it's still not great. Oh no. And it'll just keep going down and down and down and down and down. Until moves. And this is where we'll end up. Because we'll end up doing something towards the end of the window that will get the vibe up again. And this is what I like to call... let's give it a name. The 49ers window emotional timeline. There we go. Because it is literally just a case of, we got a bunch of deals done. Fantastic, wonderful, we're heading in the right direction. I like Paixão precipice. We've hit the Paixão precipice. Because realistically, I've got to rejig this now. What happened was the vibes kept going up because of Paixão. And then Marseille. Oh no, we didn't get Paixão. Are we going to get anyone else? El Khannouss linked with someone else. Oh no, El Khannouss is linked with someone else. What are we going to do? Bang! And it's just thing after thing after thing. And then, like, say we get a draw at Everton. Bang! It gets worse. But at the end of the day, under the 49ers, we always get the moves that we needed by the end of the window. And it's a consistent thing where shit gets done in a timely manner. But because the timely manner isn't right now, a lot of people jump on that and go, well, this isn't good enough. When at the end of the day, it kind of is. We're heading in the right sort of direction. I think there was a lower bump during the Diarra Sunderland stuff as well. That's fair. I'll call that this little hiccup. I'll call that where it started to tail. Because we'll say this is where the Diarra thing happened. So that's a sort of like, oh no, what if we don't get all of our targets? And it's like, you never do. The only, like, difference between now and, like, transfers in the early 2000s is that now everyone has more access to a lot more information, a lot more instantly. Which means that people sort of assume it's going to be news. Whereas conversations in quiet rooms still happen. Like, we didn't have a fucking clue about Mecha until he was already in the door, until he was officially signed. I think I checked Twitter at one point, and I was like, what? Because it was just immediately the official signing and the official announcement, and I hadn't even heard that we were potentially looking at Mecha. And it was sort of like, okay, I guess we can do that. So the fact that you're not hearing 1,000 billion names right now and Leeds are linked with everybody doesn't mean that nothing's happening. And I feel like people's assumption on that is not great. Just in the same way that I think people are going to potentially lose their heads if McAtee ends up going to Forest. But at the end of the day, McAtee wanted European football. McAtee was probably in a position above a relegation battle. So you don't get that one done. I can hear an ice cream van and it's so warm. It's so tempting. Mecha's looked pretty good in friendlies. He has. He's looked very, 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 very good. But at the end of the day, we need to wait until the season comes around to have a proper idea of it. Strategic targeted signings rather than volume, not overpaying for players, being willing to wait for the right opportunities, data-driven methodical approach. Yeah, we're taking it as it comes. And with the sort of El Khannouss stuff, I promise you that we are linked with, I'll phrase that differently, that we are having discussions with players beyond El Khannouss. Guaranteed. It isn't going to be a case of it's El Khannouss or it's nobody, because that would be madness. That would be stupidity on a new level. But we're not hearing them right now because the focus is on El Khannouss, and it doesn't help Leeds United's side of the narrative to say, okay, so, by the way, Bilal, we're also looking at this guy, because that would feel like it dilutes our interest in him on his side of things. So I think this is just a sort of wiser way of doing it. Ice cream vans in Blackpool with so many ice cream parlours where they need for ice cream vans. That would be because I'm like a 15-20 minute walk away from the front. Not all of Blackpool is the front. You got a little bit of walk. So I'm not walking to an ice cream parlour for an ice cream if like there's a van coming around. It's all down to the players these days. I dare say we've had words with agents and got told their clients are just not interested. Yeah, that will happen. And a lot of people will be like, why haven't we even seen that we're interested in McAtee? The fact that you've not seen it doesn't mean that it's not happened. I feel like the more weight that we're putting on like having instant news right now ain't beneficial to anyone. But I don't know. If Leeds George Bush Everton, sorry, what? Everton game is going to be a meltdown. I have never heard George Bush be a verb, but I have done now. So thank you, Andy. Apparently they have a list of 10 target players in each position they want to add to. And that just makes sense, to be honest. To have a short list and go, okay, this player isn't interested, this player wants to go elsewhere. Who's at the top of the list now? Let's go for them. What role do you think Pirou will play this season? I don't know, to be honest with you, because I thought last season that he played a bit part role off the bench, and then Matteo didn't do much. So it depends on the specific signing that we get in attack. It depends on how they start the season. It depends on how Pirou starts the season. I think Pirou starts against Everton, at least in my opinion, because otherwise he wouldn't have started against AC Milan. And I think he's earned that, to be completely honest with you. And I think it's a question mainly around can Joel Pirou continue to earn that starting spot. And I hope so, because I kind of hope well for him. Because very clearly, he's got a lot to him. Pirou can be decisive, but Metro will play a strong role. I think so. Why have you corrected Muniz to Munich? That's not quite. Jadea Mikolenko is injured for a month. Fantastic. Weakens Everton a little bit. Which one of our players is suspended for the first game? That would be Jaka Biol, because he got 2 yellow cards in his final match in Serie A. You're playing Agony Ant today. I don't know. I'm playing Therapy at the moment again. It's been a pretty busy one, and I was like, oh, cool, a little bit of Leeds news. Let's hop on and discuss it. But as has become fairly sort of standard, it's gone from let's talk about the bit of news to let's calm things. Let's make things okay. Let's soothe a little bit. I'm tired with the way we're handling recruitment. Okay, but why? What specifically is the issue? Because in terms of the El Khannouss thing, there isn't really anything that we can do to speed up the process. Because regardless, he knows that if there is an offer on the table of any form on the 14th or 15th, whichever it is, of August, that's the date that he can move. And he can wait until that point to get as much interest as possible. So on the El Khannouss thing, anyone that has, and I say this again and again and again, anyone that just says, why didn't we just stump up the cash? We've said that we're willing to stump up the cash. We're waiting for an agreement from the player side. And from that point of view, if El Khannouss is our number one target, then it would be a little bit of a silly one if you were to go in for El Khannouss, be told, can you wait a little bit? Because we're just waiting to see what pops up on the table. And you're considering El Khannouss your number one target in this scenario. It would be very, very stupid to hear that and go, okay, well, target number 2, are you in? Target number 2 isn't. Okay, we'll try 3. 3 isn't. Target number 4, we'll just sign you to get the job done. And then El Khannouss comes back to you a week later and goes, okay, I want Leeds. Oh, you've just signed someone different, have you? Okay, that's good. And then you don't get your number one target, you end up with number 4, and your squad is weaker for the entire season because you couldn't be asked to wait a week. That's the situation we're in. And on that, Dr. Cox, right, saying yes, the club like to mess about and wait for something that won't happen. In the kindest way possible, pay a little bit more attention to our summer windows. Because looking at our summer windows, last transfer, I'm going to use last window as an example, right? In the last 2 or 3 days, Outanaka, the best midfielder that we had last season. That's not a question mark. A hell of a lot of people had him as the player of the season. Comfortably. He was in the last couple of days of the window. Okay, cool. So they waited and the thing happened. Manor Solomon. We signed a day or 2 before Outanaka. We waited. Opportunity arose. We signed him. Brilliant. Well done. Fantastic. Shit happens at the end of transfer windows, and you cannot say, they keep on waiting and nothing happens and they never learn the lesson. To say that the lesson that they were taught, it's the other way round. The lesson they were taught is you can wait because opportunities do arrive. Like any other day, I would say, yeah, maybe you're correct. However, when literally last night we learned that for some reason Savinho is potentially moving from Man City to Spurs to open up space for them to sign Rodrigo, you kind of look at that and you go, oh, shit does happen in the final weeks. Weirdly, because other clubs want to make moves happen because the dominoes keep falling for the entire summer, you end up in a situation where players become available as things go and you can get better opportunities. For example, we likely weren't aware of El Khannouss when it came to the start of the window, and then it was like, oh, you've got a release clause? Okay, cool, nice. Largely was the 22nd of August too, yeah. Late moves always happen. We're not going to sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin for fuck's sake. In fact, I'll make you a bet right now. Right this very second. Yeah? If Dominic Calvert-Lewin does not go to Leeds by the end of the window, Elmy, I'm going to hold you to this one, and all I need to confirm it is a handshake emoji. If he doesn't come to Leeds by the end of the window, no, in fact, I'll say it the other way around. If he does come to Leeds before the end of the window, I'll donate another 20 quid to Prostate Cancer UK. If he does not, you have to become a channel member. That seems fair to me. Do we assume Jack Harrison's our upgraded Solomon? I don't think so. I think it's a case of looking for interest for Jack Harrison. I don't think the plan is to have Jack Harrison in the squad. It's more of a, if Jack Harrison cannot find a move anywhere, then I guess we're going to have him because there isn't an alternative in that situation. What's up with Calvert-Lewin? Nothing wrong with him. Yes, there is. There's quite a lot wrong with him. First up, his knees. Second up, his hamstrings. Third up, his calves. The man is a bag of custard creams that you've hit with a hammer 7 or 8 times. Everyone that said the issue with Bamford is he's never available, by the way, can we sign Calvert-Lewin? Come on. What are we doing here? Let's be a bit real for like 5 minutes. What I'm saying is, why wait for one player when you're supposed to have an A, B, C, D option? Because you don't want to end up with your F option when your A option is literally a few days of waiting away, and you can still have conversations with B, C, D, E. You can still make progress on all of those. But you don't have to commit to, okay, we will sign this one because this one's making us wait a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that is what's wrong with Calvert-Lewin. He's just constantly out. Also, I like that Elmi hasn't committed to that stab in the dark bet that we're going to get Calvert-Lewin in. Sargent best not be on the list. I don't think he will be. If he is, I'm not going to be super happy about that because I don't think he's the standard that we need right now. And he's also as fragile as a bag of crisps. So that in itself would be a bit of a risk. I don't know. Trouble is, if Leeds sign El Khannouss, where on the earth do you fit him in the team with an already saturated midfield with Tanaka, Aronson, and Longstaff in those positions? I don't think it's a bad thing to have options. I think Aronson does a different thing to El Khannouss as well. Aronson is more of your aggressive presser, whereas El Khannouss is that slower playmaker. So I feel like, in terms of having options, against a Man City or something, you probably opt for Aronson because he's going to have that defensive work rate just down. Fantastic at that. On the other hand, when it comes to a side that we should be able to break down relatively easily, look at a Burnley, for example. I say break down relatively easily. I don't know. But someone that we'd be able to be expected to beat, that's where you have El Khannouss in. Because he's got that more creative passing sort of stuff, and he can play in the wide areas. So, as mentioned in different ways by Dr. Cox, as a Harrison replacement, something along those lines. Weaker than last season, the final third. How the hell do we expect to survive in the Premier League? By being at the end of a transfer window. Because it's not done yet. And Brett, again, window's not closed. Those big ticket moves tend to be towards the latter end of the window. Again, I'm not in this big scared position because at the moment, I still feel like we're going to get the moves done. No doubt about it. So it's fine. Like, as scary as some people see it, we'll be fine. A lot of the issues that relegated clubs have had in the past few years hasn't been attacking either. There have been plenty of goals. There are lots and lots of defensive weaknesses throughout the Premier League. What gets teams relegated is defensive stuff. What gets teams relegated is every single team that's been down in the last 2 seasons conceding 79 or more goals. That's why we built from the back first. That's why it's right. Okay, so Biol, Bornau, centre back sorted. Gudmundsson, left back sorted. Defensive midfielders, fantastic. And then you go forward because build from the back. Make sure that you're not conceding too many goals to stay up, and then you can get attacking. It's about survival. So if you are in, this is a fun metaphor that might not work, but I've committed to it early. You're in a coliseum. You are brand new to being a gladiator. And you've got a choice. Do you want the big shield or do you want the sword? And you're just told, survive for a minute. I'm taking a shield. Because you just gotta live. And that's the position that we're in at the moment. We can't defend the club. They've had months to get targets in place. If you cannot activate the release clause, then activate it. No, that's Jesus fucking... not how release clauses work, and I keep saying this. El Khannouss has a release clause that expires on the 15th, which means that until the 15th, he basically has the opportunity to build up as much interest as he wants in him. To get the move that he prefers. Because until that point, there is no time pressure. Leeds will have said, we will trigger that clause if you agree to come to Leeds United. Which is functionally the same as doing so. We're just waiting on an agreement from the player end. Because there'll be other interest. And on this, right, this is a very, very good point as well. Thank you for mentioning this, Mike. How many times this summer have Newcastle United been looking at a player that they want to sign and then suddenly they've gone somewhere else? Constantly. It's not just an us problem, it happens everywhere. But people are too busy looking at the fact that we've not instantly jumped at players F, G, and H on the list to see that we can maybe get B, C, D. The idea that we built from the back was not the case. We put in bids for Diarra, Siddiqui, and Muniz in June. Okay, but look at the deals that we have completed that were also done in June that were done first. We have very clearly built back to front. So I don't know what more to. Come on. What's going on, Hannah, is that there's been a report that Newcastle have a little bit of interest in El Khannouss, which is fine, I guess. Like, we already knew that there was interest from other clubs in him. Specifically, Palace was known, and potentially Leipzig, but I don't know. Yes, but it wasn't the plan. It kind of was. But, okay. Was there any interest in Stack from anyone else? I've got no idea. I've got to be honest with you. We're all Leeds fans, want the same thing. March on together. Absolutely. Once the season starts, sod it. Just behind whoever's here. But until that point, it's a question of who are we going to get to be here. I'd rather get a top player on the 31st of August rather than get a similar player of similar standard to what we have already this week. Yeah, if people offered... Right, okay, perfect example from the last time we came up. We made 2 signings in wide areas, right? Signing 1 was Helder Costa, who we signed for £15 million, who we were like, right, you're from Wolves, you're a serviceable winger, you'll probably do a job. Signing 2 on deadline day was Rafinha. Which of those are you taking? Like, realistically, look at the situation and go, between those, would I have rather we rushed into another winger signing? Who else was around at the time? Trying to think of who else we were linked to in that window. Sod it. Would you have rather said, oh, we need a deal and there's 4 weeks left of the window, we've got to go fast, let's sign Adama Traore? Or do you do Rafinha? Or does patience have its benefits from time to time? That's the direction I'm sort of going in. In defence of Costa, he looked a baller for the position we're in. He did, but Rafinha was leagues clear, comfortably, by a margin. So I think the sort of question of, do you get good enough? Or do you wait a little bit? I'm going to lean towards, like, wait a little bit. You're likely to cut the live stream and say you're starving. No, not particularly, because I had lunch. But I'm going to end the live stream at some point anyway. I don't know what point. I'll work out what point. Typically, right, this is a fun behind-the-scenes bit. I tend to look at the behind-the-scenes YouTube numbers for an idea of when I want to finish. So it'll be like, is it a set average view duration? Is it a set number of views? Is it a set number of concurrent viewers? Is it a set number of likes? And there we go. 49ers moving silence, have faith they've got a plan. Right, okay. 4 candles. Question for you. Which of the previous summer windows have the 49ers genuinely let the club down? Again, I'm specifically saying summer because that's the window that we're in. But which summer window in the past have the 49ers got completely wrong and not done the job? Whenever you're ready. We know a decent strike will elevate us, so let's get one. Yeah, we will. Absolutely we will. We'll get there. There's always a first... No. Right, okay. You can't... This is what I'm saying, where some fans have, by default, the worst possible view of the club, of the manager, of the players, of the owners. The default view being, things will go wrong eventually. Yeah. Because eventually people will make a mistake. Eventually Marcelo Bielsa got sacked. That doesn't mean that you should have been shouting for him to be sacked from the beginning of his tenure. There's always a first time for it. Jesus Christ. That squad rebuild in the first championship season was genuinely fantastic. And last year was brilliant too, because it got us up. They know what they're doing. So to be in the position of just defaulting to panic and we're in trouble is so pointless. And it feels like it just exists so people have filled the silence with something. Because when things are a little bit quiet, people get anxious, and that's fine. But when you fill that with just sort of like screaming into a void, you've not helped anyone. All you've done is make the online space that little bit more toxic. And in the case of Four Candles, you've done it without any evidence of something having actually gone completely wrong. You judge a window on the window, not on has there been enough shit tweeted out in the last 5 days. We're told they've been planning the window for months, but we've seen numerous missed targets. Now we're down to the last few weeks, the window was that planned. Genuinely, probably. Yeah. The plan has, as has been mentioned by Daniel Farke time and time again, in every single window we've had, to stay awake in case any opportunities arise. And let's just be completely clear as well. We weren't planning on Mateo Joseph forcing an exit. That is a little spanner in the works that has made everyone look at it and go, oh, fucked here. Which has made things have to go a little bit quicker. And again, saying we were told they've been planning this for months, etc., etc., etc. Correct. That's why we got 7 targets through the door. Like, that's a hell of a lot to have done. And when you consider the statistic that I think like a third of all transfers get done in the last 2 weeks. Well, before the last 2 weeks, we've done more than 2/3. And there is this as well. Missed targets don't mean you don't plan. If you've planned, okay, we'll go in on Pie Shout, see how that one works. And it doesn't work out. Okay, we'll go in on Muniz. That one doesn't work out. That's where you go to the next plan. Or the lists. The 49ers haven't let us down, but it isn't hard to spend a few million to get out of the championship. We already had a decent time when they came in. Not hugely. A lot of the decent side was trying to force an exit. Let's remember that. A hell of a lot were looking to force exits. And they did a pretty decent rebuild from that point. Thoughts on Taremi? I wouldn't love Taremi, I've got to be honest with you. Taremi's... a bit of a weird one. Talking purely in terms of attacking players. Okay, cool. So you've seen that the evidence is not in your direction, and you've gone, shit. How do we put it in a different direction? I'm only talking about attackers. Well, that's not how transfers work, because there's an entire pitch to talk about. Seven in the door, only one with proven qualities. Okay, define proven qualities for me. Because that feels like a weird one, I've got to be honest with you. Beal signed from Serie A having had a very, very good season. Stack signed from the Bundesliga having had a very, very good season. Both of these with more than 100 top-tier appearances, by the way. Longstaff, same situation. Signed from the top tier, more than 100 appearances. Bornau, yeah, a little bit less experienced, but he's a backup centre-back. That's going to happen. Gudmundsson played in the Champions League last season. Lucas Perry. Do we need to talk about him being experienced here? Or do we just look at him and go, fucking hell, you're quite good? Come on. And if you're going to say proven in the Premier League, that's just screaming that you haven't watched any of the other leagues at any point. because they're not a bad level. Easy to see how quickly I swiveled from Solomon after the pie shout was mentioned. Most hadn't heard and most would have taken Solomon. I will still take Mana Solomon. To be completely clear with you, I still think Mana Solomon will be a decent signing for us here. Yeah, it's not the shiniest name and it's not going to get everyone sort of like, oh, Mana Solomon. But he's far too good for the Championship, which says that you go up a level. Signed top-class midfielders and they haven't come in as guaranteed starts, which is a good position to be in. We've signed some very, 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 very good midfield players. And the sort of... the fact that Autanaka is able to like fight long stuff for that place is a good thing. Rather than a bad thing. Even Metro has caps for Joe. Yeah. If you want to get patronised this channel for... I'm disagreeing with you. I'm deeply sorry if being disagreed with and having an argument set out is too much. That one was patronising. But that's what the internet is. The internet is people throw opinions at each other and they have a conversation. What are your thoughts on no quality fullbacks coming into the squad up now? It's not great, I'll be honest with you. And I think having backup in would be absolutely spectacular. It's just... it's a question of what sort of level of quality... Also, we have had a quality fullback come into the squad. Goodmanson is damn good from everything that I've seen. Like, to the extent that he was looking very, very good in a Champions League side. It's just about sort of the Schmidt exit spooking people, I think. Solomon a big enough improvement on Donto Ramazani. I think we need a right winger, not left. I think Solomon sort of proved himself at the end of last season. So the people that have shouted that we need to sign Hamer are going to be my example here. So Hamer is sort of widely regarded as being someone that has some pretty damn good production levels, like whenever he's on the pitch, which, sure, cool. Reasonably good player. However, this is where it gets a little bit janky. Last season, Gus Hamer, apparently Championship Player of the Year. I do not agree with that in the slightest, because he just wasn't. 3,100 minutes, which is 34 90s, well, 35-ish, give or take. 9 goals, 7 assists from 35 90s. Let's keep those numbers in mind. Then you look at Mana Solomon, who got 30 90s, so that's 5 less matches worth of opportunities. Scored 10 rather than, was it 9 or 6? Scored 10 rather than 9, so outperformed him in fewer games. And he got 13 assists compared to 6. So I think Solomon is a big, big step up. Well, I say step up. He's a step that we could do with, because he looked fantastic in the Championship. And if we can do better, then sure, we do better. But I'm not going to be too mad if it ends up being Mana Solomon, to be honest. Goodmanson has a cheeky touch and a great cross. Yeah, the AC Milan match made me very, very confident about having him. Spent most of his career in the Championship, 1 season in the Premier League. Yeah. So, just a little further note, because I've had a little bit of a look back through his career. At no point through Gus Hamer's career did he get as many goals or assists as Mana Solomon did last season. And that is with seasons in which he's getting 42, 39, 41, 46, 41 appearances. Playing a lot of football. They are different types of player, but Hamer is typically a bit more of an 8. And I think we don't know if we need an 8. Do you think we can get El Khannouss? I think it'll be a challenge. I think it depends on what sort of package Newcastle are looking to put forward. So if Newcastle end up in a situation where they're saying, yep, you can play consistent football at Newcastle and we're a Champions League side, brilliant. You will get games in, like, say, this much of the time. You'll play 60% of minutes or something. Then El Khannouss might go, okay, that's very interesting. I'll take a look. On the other hand, if we're able to roughly match Newcastle financially, in addition to saying, look, your competition for your position is Brendan Aronson and maybe Sean Longstaff. At Newcastle, that's Tonali, that's Guimaraes, that's Joe Linton. Where do you think you're going to play more football? Because I will be honest, we're probably going to put a release clause in his deal. That's fine. That's going to happen. I'd rather it not be one of the stupid loan ones, because that means that you just have to keep the player for a long time afterwards. But that's the sort of spot, I think. I think it's going to come down to playing time. Get Somerville back. He's very injured at the moment, I think. Don't think Solomon's enough to make a difference. Premier League fullbacks are different kettle of fish. I don't know. It kind of varies. The reason we've not got Solomon, Hamer, Wendy are all deals that could get done tomorrow. It's because the 49ers are aiming higher. Yeah. If we went to Manor Solomon, because Spurs currently do not want to keep Manor Solomon, but if we went to Manor Solomon, look, you can come back, we'll pay your club 15 million quid, something like that. Do you want to join us? That gets done very, very, very quickly, because he liked being at Leeds. On the other hand, if we do that tomorrow, then we've lost the chance for like 3 or 4 weeks of talking to better players. So, I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know what the size of our squad compares to the rest of the league. It's about average, I think. Admittedly, that's with JB, Greenwood, Gelhardt, but other clubs have players like that they're trying to get rid of as well. So, bigger than Everton's last time I looked, but then again, there's been moves since I last looked, so hard to say. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream roughly there, I think. I'm sorry to say that we can't start with Schmidt. I don't think we will start with Schmidt. I think we'll start with him in the squad. I don't think we start with him on the pitch, because I think Bogle gets fit, and if Bogle doesn't get fit, then I think it's got to be Byram. As far as I'm concerned, Solomon's made his bed. I don't know. It's fair enough to say, okay, I'll see if I can get in at Spurs, and then we'll work from there. That's fine enough. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the stream there, because I have some various other shit to do today. So, there. Ha 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 ha. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed the stream. If you did, pop a like on it, that's massively appreciated. Really helps out the channel to sort of keep on chugging. Subscribe if you haven't yet, that's always massively appreciated, and again, it helps with growth and all that kind of stuff. You can even be a channel member if you like. Elmi has not committed to the bet, so he doesn't believe that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be coming to Leeds United. But there we go. Who knows? Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. And every time I start watching the video, it's over. You can go back to the start. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, hope you all enjoyed. And I will see you all later. Toodaloo.